The base's night alarm was a howl, not a siren, not a tone, but a recorded loop of a sandworm screaming. Apparently, the psychology division had decided nothing motivated quicker reflexes than the sound of certain death at full volume. Tess was jolted awake, pulse rifle already in her arms before she was even upright. Spot was at her door, not in the hallway. At her door. The Death Shadow, Terminus 9's apex predator, was crouched right outside her bunk's reinforced threshold, like an anxious guard dog who'd heard a twig snap. The hallway lights flickered, casting Spot in surreal shadows, its body rippling with tension. Tess cracked the door open, heart thudding. "Hey, buddy," she whispered. Spot chuffed. That's the only word she had for it. A deep, vibrating exhale that was halfway between a growl and a sigh. Then it moved aside, not slinking off into the dark, not vanishing like it always had before, but making space. For her, Tess didn't have time to process that, because the first explosion rocked the east compound wall. Kazit's voice crackled through the comm unit. "Breach, hangars 1 through 3 compromised. Pirates, heavily armed. Not here for your autograph, Blackwood." "Copy," Tess said, jogging to gear up, Spot trailing her like an overgrown shadow with fangs. "What's the plan?" "Shoot everything that isn't us," Kazitz replied dryly. "Standard procedure." She passed one of the defense turrets on the inner perimeter, manned by a panicking jelly creature, whose weapon had jammed. Before Tess could even reach it, Spot lunged past her, impaled one of the intruding drones with its tail quills, and vanished. Again, silent as mist, deadly as hell. By the time Tess reached the western corridor, firefights had broken out across the base. Alien weapons hissed, barked, and screeched in every shade of the electromagnetic spectrum. She ducked behind a modular barricade and caught sight of Dr. Quinn, sprinting toward the science wing, dragging a containment field generator like a dog walker with a stubborn St. Bernard, of course. The scientist was still thinking about Spot. "Quinn!" she yelled over the chaos. "Get to the evac zone." "This is the opportunity of a lifetime," he shrieked back. "Imagine what I could learn if I can get the Death Shadow under controlled examination." A plasma bolt incinerated the wall 6 feet from him. "I'll take that as a maybe," Tess muttered, dropping 3 pirate drones with practiced bursts. Her rifle hummed with each shot, too light in her hands now. Too much adrenaline. Too many targets. She was pushing forward toward the beacon depot when she found Kazitz bleeding from a gash along his ribs. "They used mimic drones," he growled, still firing. "One of them looked like our sergeant. Shot 3 of us before anyone noticed he had the wrong number of joints." Tess helped drag him behind cover, trying not to look at the green-black blood soaking his uniform. "Shimmer's gone," he said, jaw tight. "Vaporized. Got too close to the main bay doors when the pirates dropped antimatter charges." Tess swallowed the lump in her throat. Shimmer had been annoying, smug, and insufferably logical, but he'd died a soldier. That mattered. More pirates were flooding in from the northern slope, cutting through the razor forest like they weren't afraid of anything, but they should have been, because something was following them. The first scream didn't even sound human, or alien. It was primal, the kind of sound that made your lizard brain claw for shelter. Spot tore through the invading flank like wrath given flesh. The Death Shadow leapt, spun, and crushed with the precision of a tactical strike team. Its quills impaled, its teeth shattered armor. The pirates panicked, and then the others came. Tess saw them. 6 shapes gliding through the jungle mist, sleek and deadly and just like Spot, but different too, smaller, leaner, younger. "They're pack animals," she breathed. Kazitz gaped. "That's impossible. They don't hunt in groups." "They do now." The pirates had no chance. The Death Shadows herded them like prey into tight spaces, and then eviscerated them. The firefight became a massacre, and Tess was at the center of it, not commanding, not controlling, just surviving, standing in a field of carnage with the planet's most dangerous predators, circling her like wolves around their alpha. Only she wasn't their alpha. She was something else entirely. Spot slinked back to her side after it was over, its scales shimmering in the smoke-streaked moonlight. It looked up at her with its eyeless face, nostrils flaring. It nudged her hand, not a threat, a bond. And Tess, trembling, fingers raw from gripping her rifle too hard, did the only thing that made sense. She reached out and scratched it gently behind. "You're not quite here," Spot purred. Somewhere behind her, Commander Zigvar's voice came through the comm. "Tess Blackwood, report to the command chamber, immediately." Tess stood in front of Commander Zigvar with soot on her face, a rifle slung across her back, and a death shadow pacing like an impatient cat outside the glass walls of the command chamber. "I want it clear," Zigvar said, folding 4 of his 12 arms behind his back. "You didn't command the creature, you didn't bait it, you didn't train it." "No, sir." Tess's voice was steady, but exhaustion tugged at every syllable. "It just follows me, protects me." "Affection from a death-class predator," muttered General Norvax from the side, "a being made of jointed obsidian plates. Next you'll tell us it brought you snacks." Tess gestured to her side. "One of the pirates is still alive. Spot didn't kill him, just broke his legs and dragged him over like a gift. So yeah, snacks, technically." There was a beat of silence. Then the base's AI, Morris, chimed in dryly. "Shall I assign the human a training treat bag?" "No." Zigvar's eyes pulsed, and he gestured at the large screen on the wall. A grainy clip played. Spot crouched beside Tess during the raid, warding off pirates with surgical aggression. But what got the room buzzing was the footage of 5 other death shadows encircling her like sentinels, not attacking, but guarding. "They've never formed coordinated units before," Norvax murmured. "Not even among their own kind." "Evolution doesn't move that fast," added Dr. Quinn, eyes wide behind a forest of sensory lenses. Unless we're not witnessing evolution, we're witnessing choice." "You're saying the predators chose to protect her?" Zigvar asked. "More. Like imprinting," Quinn said slowly. "Like some sort of trans-species recognition. She's been chemically marked, accidentally or biologically. Either way, they've claimed her." Zigvar turned to Tess. "And now so have we." Tess raised an eyebrow. "That's supposed to sound comforting." "It's not," he replied. "It means you're no longer just a recruit, Blackwood. You're a variable, and High Command doesn't like variables it can't control." Outside, Spot scratched at the reinforced glass, leaving visible marks. Not deep, but enough to remind everyone just how little protection those walls really offered. Zigvar glanced at it. "What does it want now?" "Me," Tess said quietly. "It just wants me." Later that night, after the remains of the pirate fleet were cleared from orbit and the last fire put out, Tess returned to her bunk to find Spot already inside. Security had given up trying to keep it out. It had slipped through reinforced gates, evaded motion sensors, and apparently dissolved one lock by spitting on it. No one had dared try to stop it again. Tess dropped onto the bunk with a groan. Her muscles felt like jelly. Her pulse rifle rested against the wall, within arm's reach. Spot laid its massive head on the floor near her boots, letting out a low, gravelly exhale that sounded almost content. "You're gonna get me court-martialed," Tess muttered. "Or dissected." Spot chuffed again. "I'm not kidding. They're going to lock me in a lab and poke me until I glow." The creature shifted, its flank pressing gently against the cot. Its body heat rolled off like a furnace. And for the first time since arriving on Terminus 9, Tess felt warm, safe. Not because the planet was less deadly, but because the deadliest thing on it had decided she was something else. Friend, pet, mate. She really hoped it wasn't mate. Her comm pinged. "High Command priority alert. Subject R7293 Tess Blackwood. Orders: prepare for extraction to Galactic Core Command. Escort team en route. Note: specimen must be isolated from Death Shadow prior to departure. Use lethal deterrence if necessary." She stared at the message. Her fingers curled slowly into fists. They were going to separate her from Spot. No, they were going to try. Spot growled low, as if reading her thoughts, sensing the spike in her adrenaline. She looked down at it. "I think they're going to make us run." Spot rose slowly, quills bristling, nostrils twitching. It growled again, this time a warning to the world outside the door. Tess whispered, "Then I guess we better start first." The transport ship meant to extract Tess from Terminus 9 landed under the veil of night. silent, sleek, and shadowed in black alloy plating. It didn't announce its arrival. It didn't broadcast clearance codes. It just arrived, like a guillotine's. Blade waiting to fall. Inside her bunk, Tess was already packing. Well, not packing. That would imply organization. She was arming. 2 standard-issue pulse pistols, her barely calibrated rifle, 4 explosive charges that were definitely not regulation legal, and a thermal knife that Kazitz had gifted her after the pirate raid. With the cheerful comment, "If you stab someone soft, aim for where their soul might be." She hadn't asked if Draxians believed souls were stored in the liver. Spot prowled restlessly near the door, its black body flexing with silent menace every time someone passed outside the hallway. It was aware that something was coming. Aware that someone was trying to take her. Tess paused, watching it. "You know they'll come with weapons." Spot didn't respond. It just stood there, watching the door, its spine quills half raised. Her comm buzzed again. "Incoming message from Commander Zigvar. You are to report to the central shuttle bay. Leave the creature behind. Do not resist. You are now classified as a Class X biological anomaly under Article 17. Any further disobedience will result in lethal force." Tess stared at the message until her eyes blurred. Then she looked at Spot and made a decision. "We're not going," she said simply. Spot's tail twitched. It was ready. She keyed open her bunk door and immediately ducked as a tranq round embedded itself in the metal frame behind her. The hallway outside had become a corridor of war. 3 soldiers, full-body armored, their visors blank, had taken positions around her room like she was some kind of bioweapon. Which, okay, fair considering her 6-legged guardian. "Step out, Blackwood," one of them barked. "We don't want to hurt you." "You literally just tried to shoot me," she yelled back. "That was a warning shot." "Thanks," she muttered. "Here's mine." She rolled an ion charge down the hallway. It detonated in a crackle of blue static, frying every comms unit and visor in a 5-meter radius. The soldiers dropped instantly, twitching like wind-up toys out of juice. Spot surged forward, graceful and silent, leaping over the twitching soldiers without finishing them off. It was protecting, not hunting. Tess followed close behind, adrenaline, pumping so hard she thought her skin might hum with it. Every corridor of the base was now a risk, every camera a threat. She ducked around a corner and found Kazitz waiting there with a med pack slung across his chest and his pulse rifle already hot. "Called it," he said simply. "What?" "They'd try to steal you. Also, you didn't stab me yet, so I figured. I owed you." Tess blinked. "You're helping me," he snorted. "No, I'm helping the walking death machine that thinks you're its emotional support human." Spot chuffed again. Approvingly, Tess thought. The plan was simple, ridiculous, probably suicidal. Get to the southern perimeter, steal a scout crawler, get off base and into the deep jungle. Once they were off-grid, maybe they could find a way to disappear until things calmed down, assuming the death shadows didn't eat her, or the forest didn't, or the high. Command didn't send a gunship to glass the whole area. They just cleared the secondary vehicle bay when the sirens began again, this time different. Not pirate alert, not a drill. Code black, breach, encryption, enclave, all death shadows. Uncontained lockdown engaged, Tess froze, then spun around. Spot wasn't alone anymore. 3 others flanked it now. One had fresh blood streaked across its chest. Another was limping, but still radiated enough threat to melt steel. And all of them? Staring. Directly at her. Not the soldiers, not Kazitz, her. "What the hell is happening?" she asked aloud. Kazitz didn't answer, because at that moment the largest death shadow she had ever seen stepped through the broken gate behind them. Larger than Spot. Bulkier. Covered in bone scars and fused spines that shimmered like obsidian. Glass. It looked ancient and angry. The others stepped back. Even Spot did. It was only Tess who stood her ground. The elder death shadow stalked forward slowly, eyes glowing with ethereal fire. Its breath steamed in the cold night air like it burned from the inside out. Tess looked up at it. She didn't move. She didn't flinch. She bowed. Not deep. Not submissive. Just enough to say, "I see you." The elder death shadow stared for a long, terrible moment, Then it stepped aside, and behind it, the rest of the pack followed, dozens of them, all around the base perimeter, all waiting. And Tess just kept walking, right through them. Spot followed. Kazitz whispered, "What are you?" And Tess didn't answer, because she honestly wasn't sure anymore. The jungle swallowed them whole. Past the ruins of the outer perimeter, through the scorched terrain where the pirate landers had once touched down, Tess walked into the forest. Like someone crossing into legend, Spot padded silently beside her. Kazitz trailed behind, muttering curses in 3 languages, and casting constant glances at the dozens of death shadows still fanning out around them, escorting, not stalking. Every soldier on base had been ordered to hold position. No one dared pursue. The footage of the elder Death Shadow stepping aside for a human had gone viral within the Galactic Unified Forces in under an hour. The memes alone would probably crash the cornet. Death Shadow Queen, now accepting applications for food taster. She's got that, adopted by a monster aura. Me on Tinder versus her with a planet's apex predator. Funny, if it wasn't. So terrifyingly true, they made it 10 kilometers into the forest before they stopped to rest. Not because they were tired, adrenaline had long since burned that out, but because the predators had stopped. Forming a loose circle around a sunken clearing, the pack dropped to the ground like guard dogs, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Tess sat on a rock and finally exhaled. Her hands were trembling. Her pulse still raced. "What now?" Kazitz asked, checking the sky nervously. "You planning to crown yourself Queen of the Nightmares or what?" Tess shrugged. "I was thinking, more like ambassador to the things that shouldn't exist." Kazitz snorted, but it didn't hide the tension in his scaled face. "They're not just protecting you," he said after a moment. "They're waiting." "For what?" He tilted his head. "For whatever comes next." And right on cue, something. The forest around them went quiet. Deathly so, no rustling leaves, no chittering insects. No sound at all. Then one by one the death shadows rose to their feet, their bodies going rigid, even Spot. Tess stood up too, instinct screaming trouble before her mind caught up. A sound vibrated through the ground, low, almost imperceptible, but felt in the bones. A tremor. Kazitz dropped into a crouch. That's not good. Tremors on Terminus 9 usually mean something waking up, something big. Spot let out a low rumble, deeper than any Tess had heard before. It wasn't fear, it was challenge. What the hell could scare a death shadow? Tess asked, already backing up. The earth split 50 meters ahead, dirt spraying like a geyser as a massive shape tore from the ground. Not slithering, not stomping, gliding, like the air bent around it. It was unlike anything she'd seen on Terminus 9, long serpentine with glistening plates of organic armor that pulsed like veins full of molten metal. A massive vertical mouth opened at the end of its head, revealing concentric rows of teeth that made Spot look like a puppy. The death shadows didn't move. They didn't run. They knelt, every last one of them, lowering their heads to the ground. As the beast floated toward Tess with otherworldly grace, "What the hell is that?" she whispered. Kazitz was frozen. I think it's their origin." Tess swallowed hard. "Their god." Spot remained still beside her, its quills flat, its breathing low. The beast hovered before Tess now, towering and ancient, its massive eyes, if they were eyes, flickering with dull red light. Then it spoke, not in words, not in sound, but straight into her mind. "You are not one of mine." Tess staggered back, clutching her skull. What? Not scaled, not born of claw or blood. Yet they kneel, they protect. You command. Why? Tess looked at Spot, then at the kneeling shadows, then back at the beast. "I didn't ask for this," she said aloud. "I didn't try to control them, they chose." The being paused. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. "Then the age of blood ends. The age of bond begins." Kazitz was breathing fast. "What does that mean?" Tess shook her head. "I have no idea." The creature rose higher, tendrils of bioluminescence swirling around its body. I name you Keeper, not Predator, not Prey, but Bridge. Spot let out a long rising growl that turned into a roar. The other shadows echoed it, dozens of them, howling to the sky in eerie harmony. And just like that, the god-beast sank back into the earth, the tremor fading behind it like a memory. Too large to hold. Silence returned, but not peace. Kazitz looked at her, something like awe in his slitted eyes. "Tess Blackwood," he said slowly, "I think you just got promoted." She gave a shaky laugh. "To what?" "To something the galaxy isn't ready for." By morning, the jungle had changed. Not physically. Terminus 9 still looked like the love child of a Venus flytrap and a fever dream, but something beneath the surface felt different. The death shadows no longer lingered like watchful assassins. Now they paced the edges of the clearing like soldiers guarding royalty. Tess had tried to sleep. Her body was exhausted, but her mind spun too fast. Keeper. The god-beast had spoken it like a title, a curse, a responsibility she didn't ask for and sure as hell didn't want. Kazitz was sharpening his blades with a stone that sparked like flint against metal. Spot lay curled in a half-sphere behind Tess, one massive clawed paw draped across the rock she sat on, like a dog refusing to be far from its person. "We need a plan," Kazitz said without looking up. Tess blew out a breath. "Plan for what? I'm apparently queen of the murder lizards. Galactic Command will either nuke the planet or start offering me tribute." He grunted. "They won't do either." "Why not?" "Because they're not sure what you are yet. They're scared. That buys time, not safety." He stood, flicking his claws clean. "We have maybe 2 days before they send a diplomatic recon. If you're smart, you'll vanish before they get here. Find a deep hole and don't come out." Tess stared at the forest. It was strange how something so deadly could start to feel familiar. She could name half the creatures within 100 meters, knew which quills meant warning, which ones meant do not disturb. Spot had started responding to voice commands, not all the time, but enough that it was less pet, more partner. "I don't think I can leave," she said softly. Kazitz narrowed his eyes. "You think they'll let you stay?" "No. I think they'll need me to." She stood and walked to the edge of the clearing, where a juvenile death shadow, the runt of the pack, was gnawing on the remains of something that might once have been a pirate drone. It looked up as she approached, eyes wide and unblinking. She extended a hand, it stared. Then slowly, cautiously, it nuzzled her fingers. Kazitz was quiet for a long time. Then he muttered, "This is unnatural." "You're right," Tess said, not looking away from the creature. "But maybe that's exactly what this galaxy needs." They were on the move by midday. Tess had decided they weren't going to hide. They were going to walk straight into the nearest outpost and send a message, not to beg, not to surrender, to negotiate. And nothing says, "You should take me seriously," like showing up with a dozen apex predators at your side. It was a 3-hour march through increasingly hostile terrain, but none of the flora dared touch them. A cloud of razor-winged insects veered off mid-swarm. A carnivorous vine recoiled when Spot sniffed it. Even Terminus 9 had started respecting the new hierarchy. When they reached Outpost Theta, the perimeter sensors didn't even register them until they were 50 feet away. Then the alarms screamed. "Spot!" growled. Tess raised her hands. "This is Recruit R7293, she said calmly. "I'm here with allies, non-hostile unless provoked, requesting direct channel to Galactic Core." The comms officer on duty screamed and dropped the receiver. 5. Defense turrets swiveled toward them. Spot hissed. A moment later, Commander Zigvar's face appeared on the comm screen mounted on the gate wall. "You brought them to a base," he snapped. "You already know what I can do," Tess said, voice even. "Now I'm going to show you what I can offer." "And what's that?" "Protection." Zigvar leaned forward slightly, suspicious. "From what?" "From what's coming," she replied. "Because you've spent years trying to control this planet, its species, its weapons. But you never bothered to ask what happens when one of them chooses a side." She looked around at the death shadows, each poised but still. "They've picked me." Silence on the comm. Then Zigvar asked, "Are you threatening us, Recruit?" "I'm making you a deal," she said. Behind her, one of the juvenile death shadows hissed at the sensors until they overloaded and sparked out. Tess didn't even flinch. "Let me speak to Galactic Core," she said. "Or the next time someone tries to extract me, I'll let Spot handle the diplomacy." Spot bared its teeth and purred. They didn't open the gates. They evacuated the base, Outpost Theta, a Class 3 planetary fortress with reinforced alloy walls, anti-orbital guns, and a garrison of 50 trained personnel, was abandoned within 20 minutes of Tess's request. Surveillance drones buzzed overhead, automated turrets deactivated. A transport ship roared off into the clouds, leaving only the echo of panicked engines behind. Tess stood at the threshold of a facility built to withstand planetary sieges and walked in like she owned it. Spot padded silently beside her, his talons clicking on the polished floor. Kazitz muttered, "This is starting to feel a lot like a coup." "It's not," Tess said. "It's diplomacy with teeth." Kazitz raised a brow ridge. "That's exactly what someone leading a coup would say." They moved into the command center. Holographic maps flickered as the automated AI system spun up, confused but compliant. Morris, the same AI from the original base, had been copied to Theta and was clearly unimpressed. "Welcome, Recruit Blackwood," Morris droned. "I see you've brought your emotional support monster again." "Don't start," Tess muttered. "I'm already threatening enough people today." "Noted. Would you like to draft your suicide note to the Galactic Council now or later?" Tess ignored it. She tapped in her credentials and activated the Deep Space Comm-Array. Then she keyed in the Emergency Diplomatic Override, an outdated but functional protocol known as the Burning Flag Signal. It was designed to be used by field agents when a planet was about to be overrun by hostile species or suffering an extinction-level event. Or, in her case, both, depending on who you asked. The screen flickered. A high-ranking core diplomat appeared, regal. Cold, alien, skin like opalized glass and eyes like staring into the center of a neutron star. "This is Ambassador Keltor of the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. Identify yourself." Tess Blackwood, human recruit R7293, stationed on Terminus 9. A pause. Then, quietly, "You're the anomaly." She didn't smile. "Not an anomaly anymore." The camera angle shifted. Keltor leaned forward. "Explain." Tess nodded toward the open doors, where Spot now sat lounging in the sun. Around him, 3 other death shadows prowled the fence line, sniffing sensors, ignoring drones. "They've imprinted," she said. "On me. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it's real and it's spreading." Keltor blinked once, slow and deliberate. "That makes you dangerous. That makes me valuable," she corrected. "You've spent decades trying to control Terminus 9, failed every time. Half your security teams don't even return from patrols. And yet, you're alive." "I'm not just alive. I'm building something." She took a deep breath. "I'm not asking for control, I'm asking for recognition. As a liaison, a bridge, I speak for them now, and they protect me." The diplomat's expression remained unreadable. "You understand that what you're proposing is unprecedented. The death shadows are not classified as sentient by our current biological metrics." "Well, those metrics are outdated," Tess snapped. "They follow orders, they protect territory, and they chose me over killing me. That's not instinct, that's intention." A long pause. Then Keltor said, "We will deliberate." "Do that," Tess said. "But while you're thinking, I suggest you don't send anyone else here with stun guns and scalpels, because next time—" She turned to look at Spot. He let out a growl so low it made the reinforced walls vibrate. "We won't hold back." That night she stood on the roof of the command building, looking out over the jungle. The death shadows had spread out in a loose formation, staking territory, marking trees, moving like a patrol unit with no commander but perfect coordination. Spot stood beside her, ever silent, ever watching. Kazitz appeared with 2 protein bars and a canteen. He handed her one. "Congratulations," he said, sarcasm thick. "You're now a living political crisis." Tess took a bite. "I was hoping for something less historic. You got prophet of the predator gods, close enough." she snorted. Then something flickered in the sky. A ripple, a distortion. Kazitz saw it too. Cloaked ship just outside orbit. Corps command. I figured, she said, not looking away. They're watching to see what I'll do next. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "So what are you going to do next?" Tess smiled, faintly, her eyes on the jungle. "I'm going to build a future." Kazitz raised an eyebrow. "For humans?" "For everyone," she said. "But on my terms, because for once, we're not the underdogs." A howl echoed from deep in the forest, fierce, guttural, beautiful in its menace. The galaxy would never be the same again. They came at dawn, not with guns, not with missiles, with envoys. 3 ships broke through the cloud cover, low-slung and gleaming like obsidian daggers. Their hulls bore the seal of the Galactic Council, a spiral of unity flanked by 3 predatory eyes. Tess watched from the upper platform of Outpost Theta as they descended in a perfect, silent formation, kicking up dust and curling jungle vines like startled snakes. Spot stood at her side, motionless. He didn't growl this time. He watched, like she did. Kazitz stood a few feet behind them, muttering, "They sent a full diplomatic envoy, you know." "What that means, right?" "That they're taking me seriously?" Tess asked. "That they're scared you'll do something they'll have to explain to 12 billion voters." The first shuttle opened. The beings who stepped out weren't military. They wore sleek robes lined with neural mesh, their eyes flickering with embedded data feeds. One of them, a female Ilkar with a floating headpiece, walked forward and inclined her chin. "Tess Blackwood of Earth," she said in a musical tone. "By authority of the Galactic Council, we are here to negotiate terms of cohabitation." Tess blinked. "That's what we're calling it. Your death shadows have claimed territory spanning 3 military outposts and have disrupted 4 planetary ecosystems. Several mining colonies have refused to operate until your pack is relocated or sedated." Tess folded her arms. "Then maybe you shouldn't have dumped those colonies into their territory." Another diplomat stepped forward, a tall, crystalline entity whose voice chimed like a bell. "Do you speak on behalf of the creatures?" Tess didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at Spot. The death shadow tilted his massive head, sensing the weight of the moment. She stepped forward, voice steady. "I speak for the ones you called monsters. I speak for the ones you tried to burn, isolate, study, cage. They chose me not as a master, but as a link." "And what do they want?" asked the Ilkar. "To be left the hell alone," Tess said. "But more than that, they want acknowledgement, they want territory, protection, status," the diplomats murmured. "You want us to grant galactic rights to a species that doesn't even file reports. They don't file paperwork," Tess said. "But they don't kill me, and that puts them ahead of most bureaucrats I've met." That earned a faint chuckle from Kazitz. The crystalline diplomat said, "Even if we accept them as sentient, even if we give them a council vote, what happens when they leave this planet? What happens if they follow you off-world? They won't," Tess said. "Pause. They can't. Now all heads turned, because I'm staying." Kazitz froze. "What?" Tess turned toward him. "I've already been claimed, marked. You said it yourself. Death shadows don't just choose. They bind. I'm bonded now. Whatever signal I'm emitting, whatever chemical trail is in me, it's permanent. I walk off this planet, and the whole pack follows. That's a war waiting to happen." "You're sacrificing yourself," said the Ilkar, her voice softer now. "No," Tess said. "I'm making sure no one else gets eaten because of a lab report. If I stay, I anchor them. You get your piece. They get their territory. I get—" She glanced at Spot, who was watching her with that eerie, quiet loyalty. A pack. A long silence followed. Then Keltor himself appeared on the central comm tower, his face larger than life on the main screen, tuned in from orbit. "You would remain here," he said, "in isolation." "Not isolation," she said. "Leadership. Mediation. You're just one human. I was just one recruit," she said, stepping forward, eyes burning. "And I survived Terminus 9. I survived your training, your pirates, your death world. And now I'm the only one the monsters bow to." Keltor stared at her. Then finally, "So be it." They gave her a title, Galactic Liaison, Class Black. Keeper of Terminus 9 unofficially, they called her the Beast Speaker, the Death Shadow Queen, the Human Alpha. Tess stayed on Terminus 9, not because she had no choice, but because she knew she was the thin line between survival and extinction. She taught the Council to listen. She taught the monsters to speak, and when the next war came, and it would, the galaxy didn't send fleets. They sent her, and behind her, walking from the shadows of a planet that had chewed up armies, came the Death Shadows, silent, unstoppable, loyal to the last breath. Years passed, not in silence and not in peace, but in balance. Terminus 9 transformed. Where once there were outposts terrified to fire a flare into the jungle, now there were neutral zones, observation towers, camps with reinforced bunkers that welcomed, not feared, the shadows that moved in the trees. Tess Blackwood became more than human. To the Galactic Council, she was a diplomat, a liability wrapped in a miracle, a bridge to something they still didn't fully understand. To the Death Shadows, she was something more primal, the chosen, the bonded. She who walks with the unseen. She lived in a custom-built compound, half organic, half machine, situated on the edge of the razor leaf forest. The place no longer screamed death to all who entered, only death to those too arrogant to listen. Spot never left her side. Not once. He grew older, slower, but no less deadly. The pack had grown too, but never strayed far from the compound. They nested close, trained with Tess, hunted only when necessary. Their aggression was no longer random, it was targeted. Controlled, because she'd taught them restraint, and in return they taught her what it meant to belong to something more ancient than diplomacy. More sacred than strategy, she still received messages from Earth, from Core Command, from the occasional lunatic who wanted to challenge her position or test the Death Shadows with new weaponry. Those types usually vanished before a second message could be sent. Kazit stayed, of course. The Draxian who claimed to hate sentiment, yet never really left her side. He called himself her bodyguard and mocked her as Jungle Empress. But in battle, he never let anyone else stand at her flank. One evening he approached her on the roof of the compound, where she sat stroking Spot's now-grayed quills. "You ever miss Earth?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Sometimes I miss pizza, and showers that don't scan your DNA every 4 minutes. And the humans? I think I became more human here than I ever was back there." Kazitz clicked his tongue. "That's terrifying." They sat in silence, and then the sky cracked. Not thunder, not weather. A tear, a rupture in space-time, shimmering like oil spilled across stars, open just above the tree line. From it poured something new, something alien in a way Terminus 9 had never known. Ships, but not council ships, not pirate scavs, not smugglers. These vessels were older, blacker, edgeless and cold, like they'd been carved from a dead god's bones. The sea, forest fell silent. The Death Shadows all looked to Tess. Spot growled. Kazit stood, his blades already humming. "Well, looks like it's finally time." Tess didn't move. She stared up at the rift in the sky, the slow descent of vessels that carried no emblem, no banner, no identity. "Only threat, I wondered," she said softly. "How long it would take?" Kazitz raised an eye ridge. "For what?" "For the galaxy to find something scarier than what already lives here." She turned and looked at Spot. "Ready?" Spot didn't growl this time. He howled, and from the trees, the shadows moved. All of them. Dozens. Then hundreds. They answered her call. And Tess. She stepped off the roof, rifle slung across her back, face calm, heart racing, soul on fire. As the first enemy dropship pierced the atmosphere, she whispered, "Let them come." Because she wasn't just a human recruit anymore, she was the apex,